Welcome to Beyond the Build, a podcast where we talk with agency leaders about the work behind the work, how teams evolve, how leaders navigate change, and what it really takes to build something that lasts. I'm Shawn Johnston. My guest today is Amanda Lee Smith, co-founder and CEO of Monday Creative, a brand insight, strategy, and creative agency based in Vancouver that built campaigns for Adidas, Lululemon, Arc'teryx, Keen, and Allbirds, amongst others. Amanda also hosts My Best Campaign, a podcast where senior marketing leaders unpack career-defining campaigns, and she's a managing partner at Future Tense Capital, an angel fund backing purpose-driven consumer brands. It's a big CV. Amanda, welcome. Before we get into it, introduce yourself.
All right. I mean, you did a pretty good job. Yeah, I'm Amanda Smith. I've been running Monday for 8 years. We actually we do an annual tradition called Pasta Bowls, where for our anniversary every year, we take the team for a huge family-style pasta dinner, and then we go 5-pin bowling. Very Canadian of us.
That's fantastic.
Last night was the official 8-year mark. And yeah, we are based in Vancouver and now Portland. We just incorporated in the US as well. I'm living down there half-time, partly to better serve a lot of the clients that we have down there, which keeps growing, and partly just to facilitate me living down there.
It's a win-win.
It's win-win. Yeah, the rest of the team's here in East Vancouver, and we really focus on, I think you mentioned, a blend of consumer insights, so the research side of things that gives a foundation to all of the strategy work that we do. Strategy, whether that's brand strategy, marketing strategy, audience journey mapping, and then creative execution. So a lot of brand building, campaigns, IRL activations, and sometimes we partner with agencies like yours and do the UX UI on web before handing it off to very capable people to do the actual builds.
Nice. Yeah, it's I always love hearing people prioritize strategy before they move into design. I don't know if you know who this is, but Jeffrey Zeldman was considered the godfather of web standards. But one of my favorite sayings of his, or quotes from his, was like, design without strategy is just decoration. And so that's always been one that I live by. As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's an important thing to say. So
for sure.
Monday has a clear through line, like brands that enhance human potentials, values, and performance coexisting. So how did that become a thing? Was it always a mission, or did you just sort of emerge from the work?
It evolved. So yeah, our mission is, we build brands, or our purpose is we build brands that enhance human potential. And for us, that means any brand that gets us more connected with our bodies, with the planet, and with each other. That's kind of the overarching mission. And it came about through my career journey and my co-founder's career journey. We all met working for Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. His wife and son had started this performance wear brand called Kit and Ace, which still exists, but under different ownership, and it's a very different brand than it was then. But the whole purpose of Kit and Ace was bringing technical performance features to the clothes that we wear every day, to and from work, etc. A lot like what, say, a Vuori is doing now. There's a lot of brands that are bringing in those technical features to your everyday wear. But working under Chip, I learned a lot about how to tell the story of performance fabrics, of performance materials. And also, we had these crazy that we had to be achieving. The goal at the time was to build $1 billion brand in record time. TLDR, we didn't get there, but we really grew the brand fast. Within a year, it was in the millions of dollars. We had 60 stores. And so we were accountable to the performance of these metrics. And when we left Kit and Ace, my co-founders and I wanted to bring a couple of those aspects. One is a true understanding of how technical product moves. So that was part of it, and how we talk about it. And then doing a better job of actually just telling the story for D2C brands. So that combination of things was where we started. We didn't really talk about enhancing human potential. We were doing work with like SaaS companies. We were doing work in nonprofit. We were doing a whole mix. But we realized where we really shone was when we were working with consumer brands that maybe had a focus on wellness, the outdoors, the planet, and movement. And so we shifted our focus really deliberately about a year in, and we just wrapped that up into performance brands. It incorporates a lot of different things. Like these days, we do a lot of work in education as well. But to us, that definitely speaks to enhancing human potential. Yeah. So it covers the gamut.
Wonderful. Yeah. We don't specialize quite in the same way, but I realized because I've had this conversation a bunch about verticalization and all that sort of stuff, and I do realize there's a bunch of buckets that we tend to be strong in because those are where our style fits best. And so like
Yeah.
nonprofits are really important for us because again, it brings meaning to the work. Like we're helping these people, and nonprofits in particular, they're very volunteer mindseted. And so everything's off the side of everybody's desk. So
Mm,
creating a process that makes that easier for them just to help them kind of focus on what they're doing. So yeah, the mission orientation, whether it's implicit or explicit, I think
mhm.
it helps what we
Yeah.
do.
And we've partnered on one of those projects. I mean, Wayfinder Developments is a
That's right.
very mission driven. It's technically a development corporation, but it's also a nonprofit and it's
Yeah.
run by volunteers.
Yeah. They were great. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, your client list is pretty impressive. Like, how do you maintain the integrity of that values forward positioning when you're working inside large organizations that kind of have their own agendas?
Yeah. I'll be super transparent. We work with property developers. And there have been times when my team has asked, how does this align with our values? And I mean, I believe in density. I'm a city dweller. I don't actually have a problem with development. We work with good people. There's certain developers who maybe don't have the best reputations, and we are less likely to work with them. But
Yep.
there are some folks that we just won't work with. Resource extraction. That's an easy no for us.
Yeah.
Actually, luxury goods are not really a fit for us.
Yeah.
We all consume things. We move through our lives consuming things. I tend to buy secondhand. We were just talking about that before we started recording, the wonders
Yeah.
of thrifting when you're, furnishing a home. But at the end of the day, I'm also a trail runner and a camper, and I need
Yeah.
things that perform in the outdoors. So I'm buying things, I'm consuming things. But consumption for consumption's sake is a different matter. So for me,
Yeah.
like we once had a luxury watch company approach us, and for me, that just wasn't a fit. Likewise, we had a vehicle company, like a high-end vehicle company that anyone would want to have their name associated with because it is a very cool vehicle, but it is not an electric vehicle, and it is run by one of the greatest advocates of fracking in the UK, like very
All right.
publicly open about his commitment to a certain type of resource extraction. And when this company approached us, and they actually really wanted to work with us, it was an interesting situation. Even after I told them that we weren't a good fit, they came back and said, "Are you sure?" But I
Yeah.
was putting together a deck
Pretty
for
please.
yeah, I started out by thinking like, "Oh, I'll do a proposal for them." Started doing some research, realized this was not an electric vehicle, realized who was the person
Yeah.
behind the brand, and I found myself editing our key messages and brand pillars in the deck that I was gonna
Oh.
present, and that was
Hmm.
when it clicked. I was like, "If
Yeah.
I need to change anything about our key messages and brand pillars in order to
Yeah.
present this to a client authentically, they're not a fit for us."
Not the fit.
And that key
Yeah.
message was, "The planet is our number one client." And I was like, "I
Yeah.
cannot pitch on this work
Yeah.
if I need to edit that out."
Yeah. We have, I mean, that's absolutely right. Like when you have to shrink or adjust who you are, um, we have um, internally a commitment to our process. Like web projects are complicated. There's a lot of moving
Mhm.
parts. And one of the things that we refuse to bend on, to shift on is accessibility. Like we just genuinely
Yeah.
believe the web belongs to everybody. So accessibility is not a design choice. Like it's just something that we believe really strongly in. So there's certain types of client relationships or certain parts in the process where yeah, like they're not aligned with the way that you do the work for the reasons you do them.
Yeah.
So all you're really doing is putting your team through a process that's going to be stressful, misaligned, difficult.
Yeah.
Like that's not a fun way to work. And
No.
and I know like my mindset's changed a lot. Is like we need revenue, we need profit. I also need a happy, functional team. So like, where's the balance? Like, am I going to be profitable if we're like what I've always found is those projects tend to burn a lot of time and they burn a lot of emotional capital as well. And so it's just not really worth it.
Emotional capital is the perfect description. I mean, we can't underestimate the time we spend as agency owners just like coaching our team through
Hmm.
doing the work. When they
Yeah.
get stuck and they get in their heads, at least you want them to be thinking about a project that feels meaningful to them.
Yeah. 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 It's so true. And something I didn't quite understand in the early days,
Mhm.
right? I always used to say every sale is a good sale, and it's just not true. Yeah.
I think I probably could have been wired that way in the early days, but fortunately, I started this business with two co-founders who are both very emotionally intelligent, have very strong
Yeah.
values-driven consciences, and they imparted that to me in a wonderful
Yeah.
way. So grateful for that.
Yeah. If I could go back to younger me at that time, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give him is like, don't try to do this all by yourself like you do
Yeah.
everything. Like I've always been a hyper independent person to my own
Mhm.
detriment.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like the first 5 years were, I would say, a complete shit show. And that had just had a lot to do with the fact that I just tried to do everything by myself. I think it got better when I brought partners on, and that's when things changed.
Do you think it's possible to not do kind of everything yourself in the first few years? I think about this a lot. These days, I have a three-person lead team, I guess four, including myself, who are
Yeah.
incredibly capable. They are so good at what they do that it's makes it really easy for me to step out and not try to get in their way. But for the
Yeah.
first 5 years, you can't afford the best talent. You are learning every function of your business and you have your name attached to things. You're developing your processes and your systems, and you want those to be
Yeah.
processes and systems that you feel a sense of ownership and pride over.
Yeah.
Like, likewise, I was really involved in the business for the first 5 years, and then that was right around the time that I was like, I can afford great talent who are more capable than me. They know what I stand for. I've onboarded them in a way that I feel proud of, and that
Yeah.
creates alignment. And so I don't need to be doing everything anymore.
Yeah, I think so it's true. Yeah, the hustle is real. Like you've got to be in there. Like you're your own best employee in the early days for sure.
Mhm.
I think where I really struggled was asking for help and accepting
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
That was my journey, and a lot of it too was just a fear of failing
Yeah.
or appearing to fail is sort of what
The
that would
number
mean
one
to.
driver for all of us.
Yeah. And what that would mean for my own self-worth. So like I've grown a lot since that younger me, but I unnecessarily made that part of the process harder
Yeah.
as a result. The other thing too because at the time this was all undiagnosed neurodiversity,
Yeah.
is the plans changed every day. So that is what partners did. Is I was like, I couldn't change the plans every day and
Yeah.
to articulate my new plan for that day, and it sounded crazy while I did it. And over time, I learned how to slow that down. So you stop listening to the voice in your head and all the fear and anxiety, and
Mhm.
you just focus on the plan. It's a good plan. It's going to take time. Let's execute.
There's accountability. I don't know if you've been running Fortune Smith for a long time, so I don't know if you
14
ever
years.
worked for anyone else. When I've worked at founder-led brands, my team has worked at founder-led brands, and we have founder-led brands who are clients. And what you just described, the plan changing every day, that is symptomatic of founder-led brands a lot of the time. And that's why having, like external boards or VC
Yeah.
partners or, bringing on partners if we're in smaller businesses
Yeah.
really adds a lot of value because you have that level of accountability. When it's just you can change your mind all the
We
time
have
and
an
you will drive yourself
enormous amount
crazy.
of like imaginative like capability,
Yeah,
but like it can eat itself if you're not careful and you
exactly.
impact everyone around you. They say 80% of entrepreneurs, so founders, are neurodivergent. And yeah, I agree. Like that there's a very common, plan changing every day. Sometimes
Mm,
with founder-led clients that we have, like we literally, the project we started is not the project we launched. Like
yeah.
it's just being reinvented every time you turn around, like those says.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm not gonna
Anyways,
lie, we have one client right now, and the changing plans of the founder has worked really well for us because whatever this I mean, they're very successful, and whatever the founder sets his sights on becomes new work for us, and
yeah,
he'll throw as much money as he wants, but it's like unlimited
yeah, that's
budget
not
when the
bad.
founder is excited about something.
That's awesome. Okay, so you've been developing this idea of linguistic abstraction. So the
Yeah.
Chip Wilson, Lululemon framing around how language creates culture. Like
Yeah.
lay it out for people who haven't heard it.
Yeah, yeah. So I very much stole this idea from Chip, but it's based on this idea that the words that we use and how we talk shapes the way we think. So as brands and as leaders, it's on us to give people that language to shape how they think about us, about our companies, about our brands, and how they show up. And so it's something that I've put into place at Monday. We've codified our culture in language. I mentioned one of those things, the Planet is our number one client. We have
Uh-huh.
5 of them. You don't want to overcomplicate it, but there are words that are very distinct to people that have worked at Monday. When you meet us, you can kind of see a through thread. We actually were onboarding a freelancer, a young designer, and I had coffee with her the other day, and I asked how her experience was. And she made a mention of there's certain words that you guys say that I've not heard at other places. And one that she called out, which I thought was really funny, is just the word alignment or aligned. We'll often
Yeah.
ask, like, are we aligned? And I laughed because that's actually something that I brought over from Kit and Ace. We would always be like, aligned, aligned. Like a culture of alignment was really, really important to us. And that actually speaks to linguistic abstraction. The language you use creates alignment. And
Uh-huh.
it also makes your culture portable. So, like, you can bring those words with you into new settings. So, it means my team is out living our culture through the way they talk about Monday and through the way they talk about what we do. But then
Uh-huh.
for us, it's not enough to just do that for our own culture. We think if our clients are building brands, it's imperative that they also have their own lexicon that defines how they show up in the world, what
Yeah.
their customers are going to connect with. It's kind of how you self-select your super fans by creating really distinctive, ownable, sticky language that your whole team buys into and then your customers buy into. And then they take that out into the world and they start
Yeah.
spreading the message for you. It is how Lululemon started and became so successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. Like, as soon as you start saying that, I'm like, I remember why people connected to the brand as thoroughly as it did. I mean, they were beautiful clothes.
Yeah.
Like, I've never particularly loved the logo just for my own,
Yeah.
fussy design aesthetics, but like it was how they spoke
Yeah.
that really, really resonated somehow. Like,
I
words
want
are
to
our most valuable resource.
Yeah, I wanna jump on that thing about the logo too. It's a dumb logo. It's a dumb name. Lululemon is a dumb name. If you didn't know anything about Lululemon, you'd
It's a
be like,
dumb name. Yeah.
"What is this brand?" But it doesn't matter because through the last 20 or 25 years, it has become imbued with so much meaning
Yeah.
that comes from the language that was used at their, they have a name, it's their store support center, SSC. Like,
Uh-huh.
even the fact that they call their HQ the SSC, the store support center, that is a linguistic abstraction. It says
Yeah.
store is the most important thing in the company, and
Yeah.
the educator, that's what they call their retail staff, the educator is the most important person in the company. That's why they don't call them salespeople, staff. They call them educators because they're
Yeah.
elevating them to a place of importance. They call their guests, or they call their customers guests.
Yes.
It's shifting the way you think about the retail experience, and they
Yeah.
did a wonderful job of that.
An example of what we do over here with that is if I ever hear anybody refer to somebody with a possessive pronoun, my designer, my team,
Oh.
my developer, I always pull them aside and I'm like, we don't own people. It's our or the.
Yeah.
No my's. We don't say my. They don't belong to
As
you.
an owner, is that hard for you? Like, do you
No, I don't call them employees or staff either. I hate those terms. I refer to
Yeah,
them as my team members. I've
I
always
do
been
too.
very firm about that
Me
for
too.
that
Yeah.
reason, because I'm just one more member of the team. I'm not above. I'm
Yeah.
inside an environment that I am responsible for creating.
I was at South by Southwest last week and, you're meeting so many people, everyone's asking what you're doing. And I did realize I was regularly saying, we do this, our team, we take them. And they were like, "Oh, so you still have partners?" And I was like, "No, I don't have business partners anymore, but like this is a collective. It's very
Yeah,
much a collective. Yes, I own it, but it is absolutely we're driving this ship all together. I'm rarely
yeah,
the one singularly driving it these days."
yeah. I always like. I do take a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I get annoyed when I hear other agency owners to sort of speak in a way that makes it sound like they're the secret sauce and they've got it all. They
Mm.
do all of the stuff and everyone else is just working away. I'm like, that is actually not how it works.
Oh, that would be
Yes, you may make the
problematic.
sales. You don't do any of the work. Like,
Yeah,
you're not really creating the reputation. Your work does, and that takes a whole team of people
yeah,
who are rowing in the same direction.
absolutely.
Yeah. So like what I loved about what you're talking about here with language and words is something I've kind of always done, I guess, unconsciously. Like, I've shared I'm autistic.
Yeah.
And so words and the way that I communicate, like, words are what I have. And
Mm,
there's a very literal approach to it. So my word choice has always been very conscious, and other people sometimes lazy way of using words can create a lot of communication problems. And so I really love this idea of like consciously creating a lexicon so that everybody, allistic, autistic, neurodivergent, whichever, all understand what we mean. Because I think one of the biggest reasons there's dysfunction inside culture and groups is we're not speaking the same language. We're not
yeah.
referring to things the same way. We're not leaning on beliefs the same way. Misalignment can create a lot of invisible friction.
Yeah. How do you create that on your team? I'll give a little background context and then I'll turn it over to answer that question.
Yeah.
So at Kitten Ace, and prior to that, what Chip did at Lululemon is every single person went through this 3-day training program called the Landmark Forum. I'm not advocating for the Landmark Forum. It was very problematic in many ways, but it was really helpful in giving us a shared language and a shared understanding of our purpose,
Yeah.
what we mean by integrity, doing what we say when we say we're going to do it, creating that culture of alignment. And with Monday, we have a super robust onboarding program. Over dinner, the team was all talking about what their first day was like at Monday. And one of our designers was saying, I couldn't believe how long the onboarding process was. It felt like I was being onboarded forever. And I
Uh,
kind of laughed, but also I made it clear that is really intentional.
that's the
We want to
point.
make sure you are immersed in our processes, immersed in our languages, and you can state our values and our pillars by memory by the end of your first week. How do you
Yeah.
do it?
So it's not as intentional. I think this is something I'm inspired, but we learned in the early days, particularly in a technical space where after you're doing it all the time, you forget. I say this all the time. I forget how advanced a level we tend to operate at
Yeah.
and how overwhelming that can be from somebody coming from the outside, because
Yeah.
we literally have a process for everything.
Us too.
And it's all documented. It's a freaking Bible. It's very hard to go through. And so we have what I call anyways, what we call a co-pilot process. So everybody gets a buddy. So there is a whole onboarding process. We take them through the employee handbook to get all the questions answered. We talk about culture, beliefs, like how we operate. So that happens. It's about a half day.
Mm,
And then they get paired with somebody depending on their job function. So for example, the easiest example would be front-end developers. So when they get onboarded, there's just a whole day where they're just reviewing code, they're getting their tools set up. There's like someone, usually the lead builder in this situation, would be checking with them every hour or so just to see how they're doing. Because again, as a remote company, it's very easy to not see struggle because we're not together. So
yeah.
you have to be very, very intentional. And so there's a long process before they do anything on their own. So we call
Yeah.
it a buddy build. So we give them like a 70% completed site to take the rest of the ways, because there's parts that they learn there, the easy stuff. We give them the low hanging fruit. And then we slowly in stages peel that back until they do their first build. And then when they actually do their first solo build in the next Monday stand up, there's like a big shout out and celebration that they've kind of achieved this like solo, they're on their own, the bird has left the nest type of thing. So
I love it.
yeah, every role kind of has that sort of co-pilot process. And we have this was something that I don't remember where I pulled this from. I'm pretty sure it was Jason Fried
Hmm.
about remote work, is that I created a structure of like intentional regular touch bases that every team lead has to do with each one of their teams. And it's all tracked. So we make sure that everybody gets FaceTime and feedback and an opportunity to have some dialogue on a regular, predictable, not optional setup. So that's
Yeah.
typically how we do it.
I think that regular, predictable, non-optional is really key. I know that when I bring on new leaders, sometimes actually one of the biggest struggles is making sure that they honor their one-on-one schedule with their direct
Oh yeah, it's
reports.
so easy to set those aside, but they're
It's
absolutely
non-negotiable
critical.
for me.
Yeah, have
If
to
you have
do
a
it.
one-on-one in the calendar, it is happening with me because that's where I'm learning what's happening at my company.
Yeah.
I'm only in the office 1 or 2 days a week, and if I don't have those regular touch bases with my
hmm
team, I have no idea
You're,
what's really
you're
going on
flying
behind
blind.
the scenes.
Well, the other thing too is that also points downwards. So if you're
Mhm.
constantly flaking on one-on-ones, that tells the employee they're not important. It tells that team member that you work with that they're optional.
Yeah.
And that does not send the right message. So if they need to reschedule, sure, but that should never come from the top down. Top
Sure.
down is is oriented towards how can I help? What do you need?
Yeah.
So you talked about Okachi. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
Monday's
okay.
values acronym as something that lives in daily language, not just on the wall. Like what does that actually look like in practice? Like, how does that show up in your work?
Yeah, okay, I'll define okache. So, okache is an invented word. It is our shorthand. It's a linguistic abstraction.
Yep.
It's our shorthand for our values at Monday. So we have our brand pillars. That's kind of like our outward facing piece. But okache, that's our values. That's our inward facing. It shapes how we work and how we show up. So it stands for ownership, co creation, adventure, curiosity, and empathy. And I think every member of my team could tell you those words off by heart because
Yeah.
we use them for everything. I use them when I hire. So when I do reference checks, I'll go through that and I'll have the people giving references score my hires on a scale of 1 to 5 and give context for how that shows
I've
up in their
never done
lives.
anything like that before. That is so cool.
Yeah, I obviously use it for my onboarding. So I, have a detailed onboarding deck that I walk people through and I explain what the expectation is around each of these and why they matter to us. And then it shows up in every single one of our quarterly offsites. So we do 3 offsites every year and then 1 team retreat in the spring. And on each of those offsites, we go through our values and we talk about how did this show up this quarter? Who would we want to give a shout out to that really was living velocity? Or here's an example of someone really putting adventure at the center of how they're doing their work. And so we celebrate those behaviors. And then the last place it shows up is actually just in our Slack channel. We have an Okache Slack channel. When someone really embodies the Monday values or
Uh-huh.
does great work, it's our celebration channel. And so someone else on the team will give an Okache shout out to someone else and say why they embodied those values. So it really has become central to how we work.
Yeah. That's amazing. You need a Slack app. You can get Cloud Code to make it for you.
Wait, tell me more.
Well, in a group that I'm in, there's a taco system. So you can give each other tacos and there's like a scoreboard. Like, I don't connect with the concept of tacos, but like if you did something like that, then it's just baked into your Slack channel. You can get like a scoreboard. People could get competitive with it. That'd be fun.
Oh, interesting. So you're trying to get more Okache points, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
That could be my first Claude Code project. I have it on my goals
I don't need to.
order. Q2 is like learn how to use Claude Code, which apparently isn't that difficult, but I actually just haven't had anything specific that I've wanted to build. So maybe that's the thing.
I will tell you, I'm an enormous in it. I don't use it for like idea generation. Just helps
Building.
me with like capacity and thinking
Yeah.
and just doing data analysis. But Claude, I've recently sort of dove into it. I'm obsessed with it.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm like, once you start coding with Claude, it becomes addictive.
Well, even like it can create documents and then like you can evolve that document together. That's just the regular Claude. Claude Cowork is like basically like chat Zapier. So that there's that whole thing. And then the code, Troy, our operations director, or director of technologies, he actually built over a weekend. We sent him to a workshop, a full day workshop on how to create the specs and stuff like that. He created a Figma to Refoundry connector. So all the builders literally just give it the Figma token and it automates the process of extracting all the colors, typography, and button styles. And it saves us like a half day
Wow.
of just manual setup. So yeah, we're not replacing
gosh.
anything. We're just connecting dots so that we can all do stuff that we want to be doing instead of just mapping colors and type
I
settings.
love the
Yeah.
sounds of that. I can
Yeah.
totally see how that's going to expedite the work for our UX designer.
Yeah. My afternoon is set aside for trying to get our time tracking and our project system to talk to each other. So that's my first Claude project. I'm going to dig
That's
into
gonna
it
be
this
great.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that you've done a big push on performance over the last 2 years. That Monday
Yeah.
had swung too far in the other direction. What did too far actually look like on the ground?
I wouldn't say it was dire. I still hire excellent people.
Mhm.
I've never had a single lazy team member. There's a reason why I've, been able to really remove myself from the business because everyone has a high level of accountability.
Yeah.
But Okache was the foundation of the business. So empathy ranked really high. And we hired a lot of people that were looking for maybe like a lot of work-life balance. We really valued, and we still value, giving people flexibility for family things. We've done top ups for mat leave from day one. Those things will never go away. But
Yeah.
I think we over indexed on kind of comfort and ease. And so
Yeah.
we get a lot of pushback if a project was taking longer than expected. The team would just drop it at 5 o'clock and pick it up the next day. And that just doesn't work for an agency. Or we would get a lot of pushback on, we resource the team for 32 billable hours a week, typically. And then there's 8 hours of flex time, which is pretty great. I don't know a lot of agencies that do that, but I was still hearing from the team, like, it's too much. Like, it's pushing into, beyond my 5 p.m. or what have you.
Uh-huh.
And we know that there's ebbs and flows in agencies. There are quiet times where you're going to recoup and you're going to rest, and there's busy times. And I'm a real believer in making hay when the sun shines. And that is
Yep.
truly
Me
how to
too.
make an agency work. There's
Yeah.
ebbs and flows. And when that work is in, you need to put in that extra effort. You are going to
Yeah.
be working extra hours because you're going to make it up in those quiet times. We're in a nice little quiet time right now, and
Yeah.
it's totally okay because we had the big push, a month ago when the team was putting in the extra time. And so now, not everyone's resourced at 32 hours. We're doing some stuff on our own marketing. We're tweaking our website, but for the most part, our design team in particular, they're clocking out at 4:30 and it's totally fine. But we had noticed there was like a real belief that working at Monday was about ease and comfort. For me, working at Monday is about doing the best work of your life and work that you're super, super proud of. And you can have a values-driven company and a high-performing company. That's actually, we reworked our main purpose into meaningful performance to
Yeah.
reflect this belief that high performance and values can coexist.
Yeah.
But performance is non-negotiable. And
Yeah.
there's going to be times when you're putting in more effort, and it's going to take something from you if you want to do the best work of your life. If you're going to
Yeah.
do work that you're incredibly proud of, that is going to define your portfolio, we wanted this to be the place to do it. And so it actually started with language. I had
Yeah.
to start shifting the way that I spoke. It began with changing our purpose statement. We used
Yeah.
to say we want to seduce people into the outdoors. That was our initial purpose statement, was, making the outdoors sexy and appealing to bring more people into that lifestyle. And that's fine. That's fine for a smaller agency that's just working with outdoor and active brands. But I
Yeah.
realized that wasn't the vision. I wanted to create an agency where when people leave to move on to some other amazing role, they put X Monday in their LinkedIn profile, kind of the same way that people put X IDEO or X Wyden and Kennedy, because it
Yeah.
signifies I've worked at somewhere that does incredible work, that only hires top performers, and that works with really high profile brands. So it was a
Yeah.
deliberate shift. It started with language, and I had to drag people along, but now they're there and they're super bought in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Like because we sort of, even from the early days, operated without a lot of middle management. I really wanted to focus on producers
Mm,
so that we could focus more of our overhead on high value, high performing, experienced producers. So and this is sort of like one of my special interests is like systems. And so I wanted the system to manage the people, not people managing people. And so, I mean,
yeah.
you outgrow that a little bit, but I always talked about, and we always try to focus on like agency, like people,
Yeah.
like what does done look like? What does good look like? How does this fit within the larger task? Who's
Mm,
responsible for what? And really making sure everybody was working together so that because we're all rowing the same boat.
yeah.
And so, but how you got there was up to you.
Yeah.
Structuring your day in a way that aligns with your energy and when you're most productive, like focusing your tasks in the same way, like the literal steps you take are sort of up to you. And again, we're like 66% neurodiverse, so that's extremely important for us to be able to sort of operate those ways, and then you can
Mhm.
really unlock that type of potential. But what I always talked about, particularly in my hiring processes, is this is an adult workplace. There's a lot of agency, there's a lot of ability to sort of control what you're doing, but that comes with responsibility. And that's sometimes stressful
Yeah.
because it's adult work.
Yeah.
And so I can't make the stress go away. I can make sure you're supported through that stress. And
Mhm.
there'll be times where like there's not as much to do and you can recuperate, but
Yep.
that's what we do here.
Yeah.
We
And,
work in client services. They're not always super cool.
they're they're not super cool. There's a big thing too about just like taking the rest you're given.
Yeah.
I had a really incredible employee who left because she felt like she was burnt out. And on her last day, I was kind of prepping all of her exit materials, and I looked at our HR platform and saw that she hadn't taken any vacation in a year.
Oh,
And I thought, no wonder she's burnt out. She hasn't been using the weeks that have been assigned to her
yeah.
to do
Yeah.
that. So I really had to get on I do have managers, so get on my managers to make sure that their team members were taking the rest that like we want them to take that rest.
Yeah.
That is a priority. I would be
Yeah.
devastated if another employee like didn't use their vacation time because they're not going to show up as their full self.
Yeah. I do the rollover report every year. I don't have to.
Yeah.
But I do. And I will actually go speak to anyone who's got time to roll over.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay you out your vacation time. Like if you need more money, that's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But this means you had 3 days of rest you didn't take. And obviously you felt you couldn't take it. So like, what do we need to change to make sure that you're taking the rest that you need?
Mm-hmm.
We work to live. We don't live to work. That's not what we're
Yeah.
doing. Accountability and agency is why we were able to pilot a 4-day work week and have it stick.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the beginning of that, I was like saying, like, you guys, we're going to lose 4 hours a week. We're going to lose Fridays, right? Clients are all working Fridays, which means Mondays are going to be a little spicier.
They're gonna be hectic.
Like these are the realities of it. Like this doesn't work if we do less, if we produce less.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've been 4-day work week now for like 2 years.
Now remind me, does everyone do 1 extra hour a day and
That's right.
then no
Yeah.
Fridays?
Yeah. 4
Yeah.
9-hour days, no Fridays.
Yeah.
And then the way that we also shift it, and the math works out, I promise we're not doing anything we shouldn't be. If the stats on the Monday, we just shift the 4 days over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one employee that's 4 days a week. And so if
That's
we
what
have a
they do.
stat, she's still working 4 days a week.
Yeah. Nice. So it's funny just talking about this sort of thing. You stopped time tracking. So like walk me through that decision. What was driving it? What did you replace it with?
Okay. This was one of the toughest decisions. It's something, so I am a huge acolyte of Blair Ends. I think most agency owners, encountered the win without pitching at some point. I've been through his sales training program, and I listen to Two Bobs, his podcast, every single week with David C. Baker. And they talk a lot about how if they were running an agency, they wouldn't time track. And so that's always been at the back of my head. And I really just thought, well, how can we know where we stand financially if we're not time tracking? How do I know the status of projects? And so I was deeply, deeply committed to time tracking, but it also drove me crazy. We had gotten into this situation where we were using Harvest and Forecast as a team. I had kind of stepped out of the resourcing side of things, but we were resourcing people down to that 30-minute increments. And Monday mornings in our weekly huddle, people would be like, "Ooh, I didn't use 30 minutes last week on this. Can you add 30 minutes to me on this project?" And our resourcing meeting was taking like an hour. And I was like, why are we even talking about this minuscule amount? Like, can we not just get this done? Just because the client didn't respond last week, can we just jump on this edit this week and not make it a whole process of like moving things around? And then, I'm over 40 hours. So now I need to move something to next week. It started to drive me crazy. And so we had a couple of staffing changes. And we had one PM who came in and tried to make some changes. And I think there wasn't quite the right amount of trust that the team had in this person. So those changes didn't work. But when that person moved on to another role, we were able to elevate actually someone who was our office manager. We hired her as our office coordinator. Her name is Vanessa. She's one of our just like all-star employees, probably the most entrepreneurial person on the team. And we hired her off ZipRecruiter as an office manager when she was a student, a foreign exchange student from Colombia. We ended up sponsoring her visa and promoting her to office manager because she was so good. And she just is so solutions focused. And she's also very empathetic. So she's always trying to manage people's emotions while also developing systems. And the thing that we were consistently seeing is that resourcing and time tracking was causing so much stress. It was the biggest complaint that we heard from people on their exit interviews, in my one-on-ones with them. We couldn't figure out how to do it. And so she proposed this new system where we we talked more about effort than time tracking. So what we do now, we don't use Harvest or Forecast anymore. We just use Basecamp. We actually use Teamwork to do our project planning. It's not the best tool and it's a little overpriced for what we're using it for,
Yeah.
but we still assign everyone 32 billable hours a week. We tell them what they're working on that week and how many hours it's meant to take so they understand how much effort they should be putting in. And then
Yeah.
it's up to them. If they take more time, they take more time. If they take less time, they take less time. We don't care as long as they hit the deadline. The presentation is ready. The project is ready to hand off to the client. They don't track their time anymore.
Yeah.
And it has taken probably 70% of the stress off of our team.
Yeah.
Never hear, I'm too much, I'm in the red this week. That used to be a term that we'd hear all the time that drove me crazy because I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you're in the red? You're just resourced 100%. That is great. We want you to be resourced 100%.
Yeah.
That
That's
means
not a
we have
bad
a
thing.
successful
Yeah.
agency. And we trialed it for 6 months. I said I was going to try it for 6 months. And then I actually
Yeah.
really thought I was going to bring back time tracking. I really, really thought I was. In the back of my mind, I was like, this is cute. We'll do this. And then I'm going to bring back time tracking. And everyone's going to hate
Yeah.
me for a minute, but it's fine because the agency is going to be profitable again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring it back. As long as everyone knows how much effort they're supposed to put in, if they want to go over that amount of effort, that's fine. We just did a really beautiful project for a local shopping center, Guilford Town Center. They're one of our longtime
Uh-huh.
ongoing clients. They had a small budget for this mural that went on the old Hudson's Bay
Okay.
off storefront. And our creative director, Ryan, took it on. And he pitched this illustration style that we thought would be cheaper than farming it out to an external illustrator. But he ended up just going so deep into the details. He made the most beautiful mural. Everyone should go to Guilford Town Center and see it. I think it went up about a week ago. And he way over delivered. But he did it on his own time. I think he was having fun with it. He was passionate about it. I don't know if the
Yeah.
client realizes just how much additional effort we gave to it. But I actually didn't care because the product was excellent and
Hmm.
we delivered it on time. If he
Yeah.
had delivered less, I also would have been happy because the work would have been good. But
Yeah.
that was a choice that he made to put in that extra effort.
Yeah. So we can't unfortunately not track time. It's all connected to our shred
You're
and
going,
R&D
yeah.
requirements. It has to be there.
Sure.
But we had the same problem, right?
Oh,
And
no,
this
you
was
got free money.
yeah, yeah, I know. But and so this was important when it comes to culture and transparency, is we were hearing the same things. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a lot of work. It's very stressful. It was all that stuff. So I was like, well, listen, everybody, we can't not do it. We can't do it for you. So we did something similar. And what we did, we worked really hard to separate surveillance from
Yeah. It can't
just
feel
data
like
collection. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So this isn't about accountability. It's not about surveillance. None of this is going to show up in your performance reviews. This is
No.
just data collection. We just need to know how long things take. We need it for the claim because this is, and I would talk a lot about, explain the whole program, the whole process of how we leverage R&D. So everybody understands it from a business perspective. That was key. Why this matters was important, but also knowing that it was also about understanding how long tasks take so that we can make sure that there's enough resourcing for it, so that we can hold clients accountable to extra effort, which is better for them. But the same thing, it's you guys know what good looks like. You know what done looks like. This should normally take about this much time, but we're not breathing down your necks over it. If it takes longer, if it takes less, fantastic.
And I have to say, to your point, you need to know how long things take. As an agency owner, time is your currency, time is your product. You need to know how long things take. We couldn't have not time tracked for the first 6 years. We needed to time track for the first 6 years because I needed to understand the amount of effort. When I started Monday, in its previous iteration, when it was just me, I got pretty efficient. There's deliverables that maybe I could knock out in 7 or 8 hours. We didn't have project managers. We didn't have intermediate. We didn't have extra layers of review that made the work better. And over time, things just started to take longer and the quality went up and the deliverables got more robust. And I would have still been charging maybe 10 hours for something that now takes 20 hours. If I hadn't been having the team track the time, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. You
data
need
has
to.
informed how I do
Yeah.
all of my sales
Yeah.
and my scoping, and it is incredibly valuable data. It's just I don't
Yeah.
really need it anymore. Sometimes we do project on a time and materials basis, and I still have the team track the time. And
Yeah.
sometimes if we do a new deliverable, I'll still have them track the time. It's purely
Yeah.
for information. It's not for accountability or micromanaging.
Yeah, I often refer to this as operational maturity, right? So you've got enough experience and depth and documentation that this just becomes inherited knowledge within a culture,
Mhm.
and you have to mature to get to that point. And like there was two agency owners in this group that I'm in asking for advice because they like tripled their head count in like 8 months, and I'm like, you guys,
Whoa.
like you're objectively wrong already. Like you don't have. You've scaled headcount before you scaled your operational maturity. That's why you're falling apart. Like, yeah, you can't build culture that fast. It just doesn't happen. Slow
Wow.
and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you had to put in the time and effort to reach a point where you had the operational maturity to just know how long things take. But
Yeah.
without the tracking in the early days of the hustle and the grind, you wouldn't have got there.
Yeah.
Got to
So
pay your
true.
dues. So you've got a lot of things in motion right now. You've kind of moved out of the agency day to day. You've got My Best Campaign podcast. You've got speaking work, future tense. Like, what does this next chapter look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, still deeply embedded in Monday. My day-to-day right now is primarily new business development. I now have an account manager that's nurturing our existing business, which has been incredible. Like I'm not jumping in to create scopes of work for our existing clients.
Mhm.
So new business, the podcast, which, as you know, very time consuming, but also thrilling.
It's
Starting to
very
create
rewarding. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting to create some content for social, actually. I've been pretty averse to doing that. I am like yourself, I believe, like technically a Gen X. I'm on the, cusp, 1980. I'm like a little bit millennial, a little bit Gen X, but I
Yeah.
lean a little Gen X and I don't love creating content for social, but on the encouragement of my team and my coach, I'm putting myself out there more and it's
Yeah.
starting to actually
I
be
quite like
pretty
it. Yeah.
fun.
I was
Yeah.
the same way. I was like, they're going
Yeah.
to say mean things, but they don't.
They don't. No, they don't. And as long as I'm not the one editing it, like I have this phenomenal Gen Z
Me
communications
too.
coordinator who's working with
Yeah.
us who just knows the timing. She edits my videos. She edits my
Easy.
podcast. She's like a
Yeah.
miracle worker. Yeah. And speaking, a future tense is kind of just like going in the background. I have some existing angel investments that, we're just going to see what
Yeah.
happens with them. I'm not
Fair
actively
enough.
deploying capital at the moment, but there's a couple investments that I'm excited about. One is a CPG brand called Belly Welly that, for the last 4 or 5 years has just been doing incredibly well. And so we're
Right.
just waiting to see what happens there as you do in the angel world. But your question is, what does the future look like? I want to do more speaking. I want to tell the story of linguistic abstraction more because I really believe that it transforms organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So where I focus my energy beyond the podcast and the content that I'm doing, I love doing facilitation. So if there is a client project that involves creating alignment, especially between senior leaders, and especially where brand is concerned, but sometimes even at a higher level, being in the room to facilitate conversations and create alignment or work through tension areas is really meaningful to me. Doing more advising. So some of that is doing kind of brand and marketing advising for businesses that are maybe a little too small to actually work with Monday as a client, but that can afford to bring me on for a coaching session a couple
Yeah.
times a month. I absolutely love doing that work and would love to do more. The future probably holds like, sitting on some boards, doing some more advising.
That's the dream.
But for now, Monday's on this really good trajectory. We've had no turnover on the team for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is really high functioning, incredibly talented at what they do, and they all work really, really well together.
Yeah.
So my job is to keep them happy and keep them connected, keep bringing in work for them and raising the profile of Monday so that
Yeah.
the profile of our clients keeps growing and the opportunities keep growing. And like I said, I'm in the US now half time. So I'm living in Portland half time, really working on growing the business in the US because that's where maybe the more exciting projects are, where the bigger
Yeah.
budgets are, where the brands that we get really fired up about are based.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I've always enjoyed sort of being in your orbit.
Likewise,
And I
Shawn.
think like we're doing a lot of the same things at a similar times.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's good. I'm happy for you. It sounds like you're in a good place. So,
Thank you.
and if you're ever doing this linguistic abstraction and culture talk in a place I can get to, I will be there for sure.
I'll keep
Yeah.
you posted.
And I think we need to create like a founders like book writing club, because there's a whole bunch of us that I've talked to
Yes.
that all have this thing we're passionate about. We want to get out of our heads. It's a really hard thing to do by yourself. But if
Yeah.
there was like a way to like form a collective where we can support one another, that would be,
Some
I think
accountability,
it'd
some
be with
body
that.
doubling as we're writing
That's right.
away.
Yeah.
I would get on board with that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll send you an email. All right. That's a wrap on this episode of Beyond the Build. Thanks to Amanda Lee Smith from Monday Creative for one of the most intellectually rich conversations I've had on the show, and for being willing to say the things most agency leaders keep to themselves. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Shawn.
All right. Everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.